As a kid, one of the biggest things I got into was aquatic turtles. You know, growing up with Jurassic Park, loving dinosaurs, before I even got into fish, turtles was my favorite animal. And I feel like a lot of kids feel that way as well. Aquatic turtles have always been a big passion of mine. But the thing is with aquatic turtles, they look cute and people always want them. The biggest issue we see is the setups that they get into, or people buy for them and put them in, are not the right setups for these animals. There's a lot of work that goes into that little $20 turtle. You just can't put it in a fish tank and call it a day. One of the biggest things about aquatic turtles is giving them the right requirements, the right needs, and every single species is totally different. In this tank here, we have a 215-gallon with multiple different species. We have vinyl red ear sliders, we have Joffreys, we have pink belly turtles, and I just love all different types of turtles. Now, you cannot just put any turtle you want into an aquarium, especially with fish. And a lot of people don't realize the necessary needs of these animals. So one of the biggest things I want to get into is showing you the right setup when it comes down to aquatic turtles. When it comes down to aquatic turtles, you got to think about multiple things. They are an aquatic species, they suffer from bacterial infections, they suffer from MBD, and they have a few other issues as well, so you got to be prepared for that. You'll see here is a tank that's done as a 50-50 split, big chunks of land for these aquatic turtles, and then heavy on the water. You're going to make sure the turtle can get up and out of the water and be able to bask. And when it comes down to basking, you can actually see the guys in the corner. You got to have the right lighting. You got to have UVB and UVA. It's really important to prevent MBD on these aquatic turtles. You want to make sure the shells are growing right and the turtles' overall healthiness, right? And also the right food source as well. Actually, on the back, we have strip lights of UVB and we have a UVA right here so that they can bask. This way here, they can get their shells dry, they can bask out, and they can warm up and thermoregulate. In this setup here, too, to keep the water clean, is a lot of people don't realize how dirty turtles are. Turtles are very, very dirty. Anyone that has a turtle will tell you right away how dirty the turtles are. When it comes to filtration, you cannot count that as what you see at an aquarium. Someone rated for 100 gallons. You can't even count that for a fish, never mind a turtle. It's a species that creates such heavy waste. So for us to do all turtles, we really try to do what we call wet, dry, or some filtration. It's the only way it's going to be able to handle the bioload. So for a setup like this, we use a very heavy gravel, or we use a very heavy sand, very large on rocks, woods, things like that to build a lot of bacteria on. And then the other thing is, you'll see we actually have a water ration coming down off the rocks. That actually helps out also building the anaerobic bacteria on it as well. What really powers it is the sump system. And that's actually the most important. Here we're using a sump system. We're using actually a 40-gallon long aquarium with micron socks that collect all the heavy waste. Because turtles create so much heavy waste, those micron socks are changed out multiple times weekly. Then it also goes into a heavy biomedia. We use heavy MBVR or any sort of biomedia to help break down that excess organic waste, and also using the right products to do that. And I'll talk about that in a second. For a return pump, a strong return pump with strong flow so the water can run through the bacteria, breaking down that excess waste and making sure you can pick up as much as possible. We also have to do very heavy gravel wax to keep that water clean. But one of the most important things is, because you're using UVA and UVB, you're going to increase the chances of algae. And anyone who has a turtle tank setup with turtles will tell you that how fast algae grows is UV sterilization. We use a heavy wattage UV sterilizer on this system right here. And you're only talking about right here, this probably tank's only actually holding maybe 100 gallons of water using a 40-watt UV sterilizer. That's something we can use on a pond, about 2,000 gallons on the outside. So that's because we want to keep the tank as clean, as clear as possible, and we also want to be able to prevent any sort of bacterial issues or anything like that as well. So what else do we get into? Well, you got to pick out the right products, and there's some products out there to keep your turtle tank clean that'll help you out as well. Monster 360 by Fritz has been a great product. This is a heterotrophic bacteria that'll break down all the excess organics and waste. So if you're using micron socks or anything to collect those bacteria, it will really do a good job of keeping that waste down as long as you're on top of your gravel backs. And another thing is also the allergen. We also use heavy organic scavenger resins. That's one of my top favorite. You'll see that very heavy in the sump. Organic scavenger resins collect a lot of the organics that are in the water, and they bring it right into this. This is I'm telling you, if you're doing turtles, this is definitely a must if you're running aquatic turtles. The next thing we'll get into is carbons. You can use heavy on carbons or phosphate removers. Because you're using those heavy dome lights on the back end, you're going to get a lot of that. So use like a heavy carbon and a phosphate remover to break that down as well. These are all things because these animals are eating so regularly throughout the day and they have so much waste. You're going to want to use the carbons and the scavenger resins. You're going to want to change out monthly. You're going to want to be on top of that. The rules that apply for an aquarium fish versus turtles do not apply for turtles. They just don't, because you're talking about an animal that produces so much more waste, that's growing at a faster rate, and also isn't taking way more intense lighting because of basking spots and UVB and UVA light rays. Also, same thing when it comes to heterotrophic bacteria, is adding them to the tank. You got to actually triple that because they have to break down so much more. And that's also something we would get you into and show you how to do it. So if you're into a turtle tank or you have a turtle tank, we can help you out. But the biggest thing is you got to keep up on that filtration, way over filter, and you got to keep that water clean. The next thing is bacterial problems. One of the biggest things you'll get into, especially on newer turtles, is bacterial issues. Or the next biggest part is Bardella Frit. It's actually Frit's line, is the Bacter Shield. We use this very heavily to prevent a lot of bacterial problems on aquatic turtles, and this helps out quite a bit. You can also get into like Neosporin and things like that, depending on the problem. But for overall, if you start off with bacterial, great product to get into. So a lot of our setups, you'll see us mix turtles with fish. That cannot just be done with any turtle or any fish. We just have it down to the science. In this display, you can actually see there's archers. Archers are a cool species of fish that, you know, they can actually spit up and spit at crickets, climbing up on top of any of the decor or anything. They're just a lot of fun. The reason we can get away with it is the pink bellets and the Joffreys and the albino red ears is that species will more likely, because of the size, leave them alone. If these were small little tetras, it might be an issue. The albino red ears won't be so much of a problem because they are albino. They actually have a hard time seeing the fish, and for the most part, leave them alone. And it's just done with a lot of hiding spaces. So you do take those chances, but when the tank's set up right to the right fish, to the right turtle species, you'll do okay. Now, all because this tank setup is set up for these, doesn't mean it's going to work for every single species. Certain species require different pHs, some require tannins. So depending on that species, that's something we could get you into as well. If you're looking or you have more questions about aquatic turtle setups or any aquatic reptile species, that's one of my personal favorite projects. Come on down, ask questions, and we'll help you get it set up the right way so it looks fantastic all the time.